Welcome to NRL 360 Rugby League from every angle. Joining me again, the great Gorden Tallis. Let's bring the journos in. Paul Crawley and Andrew Webster. And great news for the Queensland Maroons. Cameron Munster has made it back into camp for the captain's run. Gordy, inspirational really, be great to see.
Yeah, that's great news. Obviously, you didn't know how the week was going to pan out, but he looked to be bouncing around and his jovial self walked around, and that's really good signs if you're a Queensland fan.
I don't think there'd be a person in the game not feeling for Cameron Munster right now. You know, such a sad situation ahead of one of the biggest moments of his life, but good on him for coming back and being a part of it.
Yeah. Just shows you what a special player he is, that he's been able to even say to Billy Slater straight away on Sunday, I'll be playing. You know, that just shows what a competitor he is. I can't. There's nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
You know, I talked to like a lot of historians across the game today, and you know, I think back to when Robbie Farah's mum died. And just before that game at Leichhardt, and Robbie didn't play and it affected the team. I think of Michael Maguire's mum dying the day before the 14 grand final when he was coaching Souths. But nothing like this, not in Origin at least, and not a game of this importance. So it's all the best for Cameron Munster.
What was really nice too, sorry mate, what was really nice too, Gordy, I saw his mum and wife Bianca and the kids. They must have travelled, they travelled back down with him from Rockhampton and were there for the captain's run, which was a good touch too.
Yeah, well, that's the most important time of the year is to have your family with you, and you couldn't imagine his mindset going into this. And I said the other day that if he doesn't play, Queensland would obviously stand behind him because family comes first. But they've chosen as a family for here to go to represent his dad, and I'm sure he'll do that tomorrow night.
All right, let's cross live now to Blues camp where New South Wales team manager Frank Panisi joins us on the GIO True Blue mic. Frank, thanks for joining us. Good news for the Maroons with Cameron Munster back in camp, and it must have been a bit tough for you and Craig being so close to Cameron, but being in the New South Wales camp while Cameron was going through what he did this week.
Yeah, thank you, Braith. It certainly was. I'm not going to lie, it was. And Sunday morning was a tough phone call when Billy called me. Craig was actually on a flight back from Townsville after the Storm game, so he landed and got the news there. And obviously we feel for Cameron, but Cameron's father Stephen and mum Deborah, they've been really big parts of the Storm for the last 11 years. Cameron came as a 19-year-old, and his parents have been wonderful supporters of his journey. They spent a fair bit of time in Melbourne for big games and milestones and parents' weekends. So Stephen was a real character, and to get that news Sunday morning was devastating.
Good on you, Frank. I know he really loves you guys in Melbourne, and the support that you've given him and his family over the years has been amazing. So thank you for that. Now, New South Wales, you're going to be 1 to 17 tomorrow night?
We are, Braith, everyone got through. Obviously, the big injury clouds over the last 10 days or so has been Payne Haas and Brian Tohu. Internally, we've handled it really well. We knew from the start they were going to be in some doubt, and more importantly, we knew that their preparation was going to be restricted, and that's why we selected the team that we did. Jacob Kiraz was selected as 18th, which probably shocked a few people, picking wing as your 18th, but he was in there for Brian, so he covered all the trainings that Brian couldn't do. So, and the players knew that if Brian was going to be unavailable, it was just going to be a smooth transition to Jacob. And the same with Payne. We knew that he was in some doubt as well, and he was going to certainly be restricted with his training, and that's why we picked Lindsay Smith. He deserves it for a start, but also picking a player from a team that had the bye, so we're going to have him for the whole week. So from our point of view, I know there's been a lot of noise outside about the injuries, but it's been really smooth, and we've been certainly unflustered in that area.
Hey Frank, it's Gordy. There's one thing that I was jealous about the New South Wales. They do that big long walk of fame, walking onto the ground. You guys aren't going to do it. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, Gordy, we probably had made that decision 12 months ago after that first game that we lost, and it was we did it with consultation with the leaders, most importantly, and they were quite keen. As great as it is, the walk and running out, but their preparation before the game was critical, and getting dressed a fair way away from the ground, and they just wanted a normality as much as possible. And they're still going to get an almighty roar coming out the other tunnel, and as a special, we walked there to training last night, so we experienced that, but obviously without the roar of running out. So we just think for preparation and in consultation with the players, based on what we reviewed 12 months ago, we decided that's the best thing tomorrow night.
Frank, Andrew Webster here, mate. What are you expecting from Ashley Klein in the Origin decider tomorrow night?
Oh, we just got to worry about ourselves. We can't worry about Ashley Klein or the officials. Game 2, we'll learn from our mistakes, and we didn't handle. Yes, we've probably got one or two bad calls that every team does every weekend, and I'm sure there was probably a couple Queensland could have got as well. But we got flustered. We spoke about before about being unflustered. We just got to worry about our game and being disciplined. And there are a lot of penalties that we shouldn't have done, and we're going to be certainly more disciplined in that area. So our major focus is on ourselves, Webby.
Frank, Paul Crawley here. On that note, looking back in hindsight, the start of that game after such a dominant game 1, to start the game that way with the lack of discipline and the lack of cohesion, in hindsight, could you see it coming?
No, we probably didn't play. Scoring early probably didn't help us, and I know that sounds quite bizarre, but we probably lost a bit of focus and we didn't handle the conditions well. It was incredibly wet over there, and we probably started pushing passes and making things happen. Getting that early try probably gave us a full sense of security. So then we just became unflustered, and our discipline suffered as a result. So we looked at that very early in the last week for the start of Camp 3. We looked at where we went wrong, but we also looked at the positives. And when we got back to just playing the game plan and being more focused and more disciplined in the second half, we saw what we can do. So, that's the blueprint was in the second half, and that's certainly going to be giving us a confidence and what we need to do tomorrow night.
Frank, Nathan Cleary, some say it's the final frontier for him. And also, how's his body, how's his preparation been? He was definitely impacted in Game 2 by it and hampered. How is he prepared for this one?
Been fantastic, Braith. He really has. He's the ultimate professional, as we all know. That's probably been being involved with him this year. He wasn't involved in the series last year, but I was just talking to Craig Bellamy this afternoon. Just his professionalism and the way he prepares is just second to none. He's far more relaxed this game. Obviously, having that injury the day before the game in Game 2 didn't help. He won't be doing the goal kicking tomorrow night, but everything else in terms of kicking, he'll be the main kicker along with Jerome Luai and anyone else. But he's had a great preparation. He hasn't missed any training. As I said, he's felt very relaxed. He looks confident, and I think he's in for a really big game tomorrow night.
Beautiful, good to hear. Does that mean Zach Lomax will be doing the goal kicking?
More than likely, Braith. He obviously, had some tough kicks over there in Perth. A couple hit the post. As I said, the conditions were pretty ordinary. He did a great job last year for us, Zach, goal kicking. The couple of games there that, especially that last game where he had a real pressure kick to make it 2-2, from the sideline on his wrong side. And we can see even after Perth game, he came back to Parramatta and he kicked well straight away. So he's been kicking well at training, and we have full confidence in him.
Frank, Laurie seemed to be really confident through the week every time he got interviewed. What's been the message/theme for tomorrow night's decider?
Yeah, Gordy, I think is our mindset in terms of probably starting our trainings well, so that transfers onto into the game. We, as Paul mentioned before, even though we scored the first try, we didn't start well in Perth, and there's been a major focus all week on doing everything well from the start. So he's been really focusing on that. But he's a relaxed character, but when he speaks about the game and getting close to the game, you can see the passion and his experience coming through. And we're very lucky to have someone of Laurie's ilk as our leader. The boys respect him. He's got a wonderful group of coaches behind him, and he's got Craig advising him. So he's just been wonderful to work with.
Frank, I wanted to ask you about that. I spoke to Billy Oak earlier in the week. He reckons he's had a tiny little role to do with this New South Wales team. Are you buying that? Is that true? How hands-on is Craig Bellamy with the preparation for this team?
Yeah, Webby, it's a great question in terms of, I was a little bit unsure myself what Craig's role will be, and he was the same, to be honest, and it's evolved as the series gone on, and he does a lot more than he makes out, but that's just Craig, just, keeping everything on the low. He'll come, Laurie will ask him to speak to the players as a team at times. He'll also speak to players individually, and he does a lot of work with the coaches themselves, in the background, in the planning and giving some advice, and he's genuinely enjoyed the role. He's been fantastic for the group, and it's probably I've seen him in a different role than I usually see him day to day down in Melbourne, but it's certainly one that I think it's been a great asset to the team.
Seems to be nice and relaxed, which is good to see with the head coach of the Melbourne Storm. Thank you very much, Frank. We appreciate your time. So close to the game. You've given us a lot of confidence behind the Blues, and good luck tomorrow night.
Thanks, Braith.
There he is, Frank Panisi, and we'll check in with Nate Miles in Queensland camp shortly. But let's continue our Origin preview thanks to Ford and Crawls. You think the Blues only have themselves to blame if they lose this one?
Well, I asked Frank that question because I thought from the start of the game, in Game 2, you could see that the Blues went out there with a cockiness about them. Their discipline was very poor, despite all the criticism of the 8-0 penalty count and Ashley Klein being one-sided. The Blues had themselves to blame. And we saw in the second half how they came back, and they put all those points on when they played with discipline. So, on paper, they are clearly the best team. If you go through the two teams there and you picked your best fullback, your best wingers, your best centres, if we're being fair dinkum, New South Wales take all those spots. They take the halfback spot, they take one of the props at least, they probably take the back rowers and they take the lock. So there's 10 of the 13 on paper.
All right.
On paper, they are clearly the better team.
Yeah, if you're picking an Australian side, it'd be dominated by New South Wales players, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I want you to say no.
No, it wouldn't. But you know what? It's.
Come on, say it, Gordy. Come on.
You got to admit, on paper, New South Wales have a better
They are
side.
100%.
But it's
100%.
not played on paper, and that's where we're lucky.
And,
that's where we
Origin
get our
never
chance.
has. Origin never has.
Never has been.
But that said, I agree, Crawls. I thought it smacked of complacency in the first half there in Perth. They went into that game.
Just don't give Queensland a rap. They were really good, guys.
They were I agree. I thought they were sensational, and the way that they held on was sensational. I think people aren't giving Queensland enough credit for that victory, and I think they go into the decider tomorrow with a lot more confidence than people sort of should be giving them credit for. New South Wales were the shortest price favourites in almost Origin betting history heading into Game 2 there. Just based on that team. I think it says a lot that regardless of what happens tomorrow night, each coach, Billy Slater and Laurie Daly, will get criticised or lauded for their selections. Laurie for keeping the team, not making any changes, not for bringing in Colomatungi, and Billy has really thrown caution to the wind with the side that he's picked and the changes that he's made. And they're either going to both look like, or one's going to look like a genius and one's going to look like a dud.
Speculation and criticism comes with Origin, doesn't it? So I think both coaches. You reckon?
Yeah.
So both coaches.
Crawls has delivered most of it.
Hey.
Sorry, guys. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I think, in fairness, when we go and look at the selections, though, Colomatungi probably did himself no favours in that final lead-up game.
Yes.
He probably made the decision for Laurie. So I think when Laurie named this team, it's probably what you expected. I think Billy has made some brave calls, but before the game, I'll go out there and say I think he's made the right call with Papali'i.
Okay.
I think he's a great decision, and it could be a massive motivation, and potentially it could lead them to victory.
Webby, a lot of people are split on this. The Nathan Cleary final frontier, winning an Origin decider as the number 7 for the Blues, which he hasn't done. Do you agree with that or not?
No, I don't. I don't think he's got anything to prove. But this game is in the final frontier. He's 27. He's probably got another 8 years of football left, you know. It's funny the narratives we spin in this game. I mean, the guy's won 3 Origins, he's won a World Cup. But I tell you what, though, if he wants to... I still don't... And this is the thing. The same questions are asked about Joey's place in history around the same age as Nathan is now. And I still think he's got a way to go. I know he's won 4 comps, and I'm not knocking him at all. I'm not bagging him. He's a champion player, and we all know that. But he's never won a Dally M, and he has to win if he wins an Origin decider, it really buries the argument in many ways. But he's still.
So it is his final frontier.
No.
Because what are you trying to say?
No, I'm
there?
not saying tomorrow night's his final frontier.
I think.
But if he's going to get to,
I wrote that again. So my reference there is that Webby, he's had great Origin moments.
Yes.
But as for owning the series, I think we're yet to see that. And while it's not a criticism at Nathan, at club level and in grand finals and in games throughout the season, he has absolutely dominated to prove himself as the game's best player.
And
this is just the natural progression.
I still don't have him as up there with Joey. I don't. I don't have him up there with Joey, Wally, and Cameron. You know.
Neither do I. But
he's
dominated grand finals. Like
he has. But he's got 8 years, at least 8 years to go in his career.
It's not the final frontier now, but it'd be good to tick it off now. You know, and it would take him to another echelon in league.
It sort of buries the argument if he can.
It would bury the argument. I don't read into the Dalians because, you know, there's so many good teams players in his team. They spread the points out.
Sure.
I think some years
players
can
have been judged of this, right? So there's certain boxes you tick. I remember Jonathan Thurston, because he won that grand final when he was really young. He had to go win another comp because then he started dominating Oregon. And then they said, but he hasn't won a competition as captain and he hasn't led. So there's always boxes that you've got to tick in our game.
And Joey had those memorable moments.
If you want to sit on the shelf
series
with the Andrew Johns and the Wally Lewises of the world, that's the shelf you sit on. Well, there's certain boxes that you have to
He's
tick.
a bees, you know what, I've been at this level.
Of course.
And alongside these immortals. He's not far away.
Maybe it is the final frontier.
We got
We're
him.
split
You were
there.
right, Crawls. You were right. Don't listen to me.
All right, let's switch.
It's not a criticism, though, you know. It's
No,
not
I
a
get it.
criticism
I
of
get it,
Nathan.
I get it.
And there's no question in the world for what he's achieved at 27 years of age. It's just astonishing.
Yes.
But like Braith said, it's a chance to tick another box, and it is the final frontier.
Oh,
so thanks.
Thank you. You're right, Crawls. I'm wrong. You're right.
Let's switch
What would I
camps to the Maroons and Cameron Munster. It's been a horrible week. You know, there's no other way to put it. I suppose the challenge for him in this game is to harness all of that emotion and put it into his performance. You know, it's probably easier said than done, and I think the reality is it's going to be a challenge for him. If anyone can do it, it's Cameron. I think we all agree on that, especially for Queensland, and especially the reasons he's playing, which a lot of it would be for his family and his dad. But still, you know, it's going to be hard for him, isn't it, Gordy?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you don't need motivation pulling on a State of Origin jersey for either state and being captain. So there were so many, you know, carrots in front of him to go out there and play and lead this side. But there's just another one. There's another bit of motivation or the spirit that sits on his shoulder that when he's there in a tough moment that he can lean on someone. But, yeah, like...
Can I say as a New South Wales fan, seeing those images of him at the captain's run, smiling like that, it scares the shit out of me. Because I just think he's got the game of his... He played one of the games of his life and his career in game 2. I'm expecting even more tomorrow night.
You know the makeup of his personality better than us, Braith, but he strikes you as that man who... You think back to Shane Warne, and he could handle turmoil off the field and then go on and just adapt. And Cameron strikes me as that sort of player that he almost plays off the top of his head, or he looks to play off the top of his head. And he goes out and plays what's in front of him. And it wouldn't shock you one bit if Cameron Munster goes out on the field on Wednesday night and walks off the best player.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. And I think he's going to do great. So I'm wishing him all the best for tomorrow night. It's a unique situation that no one really finds themselves in, and I wish him all the very best.
How's it been for you, bro?
It's been tough because it was a shock, and I haven't been able to really see him. So I'm going to go to the game and go see him in the sheds. But it's been hard because I haven't really been. And I wanted to give him time for his family. You know, I can relate to it. I think a lot of us can who've been in a similar situation. So I know what he's going through, and it's been difficult, but. He's a great bloke, and he deserves all the best. So, can't wait for tomorrow night to watch him play well. Now, let's move on, and we're going to have Nate Miles coming up, and we'll talk some more Origin and Queensland down the track. But South's running equal last with the Titans. Is that as bad as it looks?
I think it is. I watched that game on the weekend against Manly, and, they're missing Cody, they're missing Latrell, Cam Murray's not there. There's other players, I think there's 7 or 8 out at the moment. But for mine, it shows you where this current South Sydney roster is and the depth of the club. And when you peel back the layers of what's happened in recent years, for mine, and Souths have denied it till they're blue in the face, but I keep going back to the moment they didn't offer Adam Reynolds a 2-year deal. It's kind of like when the seams fell apart at this joint, because in the years since, they've gone on and offered Cody multiple contracts, and another year next year. They bought Jack White, and Jack, I think, was over 30 years of age, and they offered him a 4-year deal. It just seems like since then they've made mistake upon mistake when it comes to their roster, and I think they're paying the price now.
Do you see it the same way?
I don't. I'm sorry, Crawls. I'll have to disagree with this one. I was as critical as anyone about Adam Reynolds not getting a 2-year deal at that club. I thought it was madness for them to let him go. But you have to honestly say that this season you've got to ping it on their injury toll. Like it's been an incredibly, like it's hard to think of a club that's had a year with injuries like it. I understand what you're talking about around the halves. That's something they've got to deal with. Yeah. But Adam, you can't pin it on Adam Reynolds and the Lewis Dodd situation. That's part of it. But you know, you take out Cameron Murray, Cody Walker's played 8 games, Latrell's played 10. You know what I reckon it is? I reckon they've been beaten. You know, they've got through on heart for so much of this season. I think the loss to the Melbourne Storm just broke them.
Yeah. The fact that Cody...
the floodgates have opened in the last 2 weeks.
The fact that Cody is continually going off injured and there's no depth below him. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
they've got players there. Latrell, as a fullback, right, Latrell can really do some damage when he gets up the good end of the field.
Yes.
But from the back of the field, some of his runs, there's no impact. There's no lightning speed. Even on top of that, when you look at their wings, they haven't got the strong carries. If Latrell can't do that out of the back end of the field, they haven't got the other players. To me, the roster's out of shape. And you talk about the Lewis Dodd thing, again, it's a $750,000 mistake. Yeah. You know, like across the board, they have made mistake upon mistake where other clubs have left them for dead.
I said it. I think it was either, when was it, last week. There's been some poor decisions in roster management, and that's why they are where they are. I mean, injuries, yes, and I said again, the majority of the year I could understand where they were because they had significant injuries in key positions. But then you look at last weekend, Webby, conceding 50 points. They had Kalama Watangi, you know, Whiten, Latrell, Cody, Humphreys, you know, Johnston, Arrow. Like
they had a full squad against. You know, they had a full team.
That's a much better team
against the Dolphins.
Like, you know, look at the West Tigers. They're copping bullets left, right, and centre.
Sure.
Look at their squad compared to that South squad. Like I think you can get a bit. I don't know, because they've been talking about their injuries all year, and we're going good considering the injuries, and then everyone sort of falls into that, and you know they have got the best coach on the planet. Yeah,
and it's not just they've hardly settled on a team.
And you are right. That's been a big factor. The injuries.
A lot of that is too because of recruitment.
Right.
Well,
their injuries aren't because of recruitment.
Well, Lewis Dodd's a halfback on $750,000. If they bought the right halfback or made better decisions, they wouldn't be in a hole that they're in. Humphreys, they said they were really happy with the start of the year, but now he's
flatlined though, hasn't he? Like a young bloke that's come in to NRL level and played up above himself for many weeks, and in recent weeks he struggled a bit. And again, that goes back to the depth of the club because he probably wasn't brought in to do that job. Dodd was. Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing because they have had a torrid injury toll, but to become an equal last with the best coach in the world, with the players they had on the weekend, I don't know. I don't think it's acceptable. I think any other team would be copping bullets left, right, and centre if they were in the same boat.
Well, and in fairness to by the sounds of it,
it's taking how long?
I know. Fairness to the players that are out there too. Like if you go back and take away maybe the last 2 weeks, although they tried pretty hard on the weekend too against Manly, but the rosters there was just this difference in class. But the week before that was disappointing. The 4 weeks prior to that, they tried their hearts out against 4 of the best teams in the comp. No question, the players out there are giving their absolute.
So what changes next year then?
Well, Braith, there's got to be changes.
And what's changed from last year?
What the first thing that has to change next year, there has to be a resolution on Dodd. Now, I know the club has come out and said that there's no way they're going to push him out, and he has got a 3-year deal, but it's just an ongoing problem until it's resolved because he's not playing first grade there. It's 750 of the cap. They've had some terrible luck, but that's one burden that they have to swallow.
Call me mad. When Gray was back at fullback, looked like that the side had a bit more energy.
He's been injured too, unfortunately.
And then maybe Latrell go into the centres, like we watched that Manly with Tommy.
That's not
I think it has to be considered.
I wouldn't think it's going to happen.
I think it has to be considered at some stage because you can see the player Latrell is. He's an absolute weapon when you get up to that other end of the field. And against the Warriors a few weeks ago, he nearly won the game in 20 minutes.
He's a freak.
But the energy that he brings out of the back of the field, it brings them down. Look at KO Weeks on the weekend, what he does for Canberra, what Hammer did when he played Souths for the Dolphins. The Souths don't have that. They don't have that energy coming out of the back of the field. Jai Gray, if he's not the fullback, I'd at least give him a go in the halves. That's where he played his junior
When Latrell used to turn her on, and he still does, but when he used to turn her on, they just win. There was no other result. But now when he does turn it on and plays great, which he has been, given the circumstances, they're still struggling, you know. It's a bit of a battle for them. And Cody doesn't help being out of the team for the majority of the year as well. So that's... What would you do with Latrell?
I'd play him in the centres. Like, I do think he's a Ferrari, and you don't need to put that many miles on the on the clock. I think he can have an impact. I watch him at State of Origin. It is the hardest game to play. Toto scored all those tries because he's outside of Latrell. I think he can have an impact with any number he puts on his back, but I wouldn't put him at fullback.
It also, Braith, shows you where they're at too, the fact that they are now offering Cody another year.
Yeah.
Because he's got the class to him that the players around him haven't got. So it's the club's in a position where they do have to offer him a next year.
Yeah.
But does that mean that they've got the roster right? No, it means they've got it
Do
right.
they still have a lot of juniors, South Sydney?
They've got some
Wasn't
good
it-
kids
They
coming
do,
through, I
but in
understand,
terms of
but
what
they're a
they're
few
big-
years away.
It's not like it used to be.
Their catchment's getting smaller. Yeah,
It's not how it
just
used
because
to
of the changing area, really.
Anyway, we could go all night, but even their forwards go on. Like, they're probably only a couple of forwards, right?
That's
But
right.
there's no... Who are they going to buy? It's sort of like you're looking at what positions they need most, but who is on the market and who's available. And
I think Gorden raises a good point too, though, about the juniors and that, because look at the Roosters system that they've set up in other successful clubs. If you don't have the kids, you've got to find the kids.
Yeah.
You've got to bring them in and get them up to speed.
yeah, all right. Stick around, journos, and following us. It's Face to Face with Laurie Daly, Part 2. Welcome back. Let's head into Queensland camp now, where Maroons assistant coach Nate Miles joins us. Milesy, thanks for joining us so close to the game. Now, Cameron Munster, he's arrived and joined camp. How is he, and what does it mean for you guys to have him back in?
Yeah, thanks for having us, Braith. Look, it's always good to have Cameron in and around camp. I think everyone's well aware of the energy he rolls with. So it's good to have him back, and the boys are feeling pretty comfortable to have him back in our grasp.
Hey, Nate, it's Gordy. Was there any doubt that he might have just stayed with his family?
Oh, look, Gordy, I think it'd be pretty selfish, right, to think that he should make the decision based around us. So I know Cam, and I think everyone on that table there has had their runnings with Cam, and good and bad ways, I suppose, but he's just an energetic dude, mate. He loves his footy, and obviously he loves his family as well. So we were thrilled to have his commitment to the game. Knowing Cam, I don't think he'd like it any other way.
Nate, Paul Crawley here, mate. Talking to one hardhead about another modern hardhead, Josh Papali'i. What energy has he brought to the team, and what do you expect for him tomorrow night?
Hey, Crawls, his head's very hard. Mine was just big. So, bit of a difference there. Look,
You said it.
Papa's got a very... if you've seen the back of my hat, it's maxed out, bro.
But tell us about him. What has he brought to the squad, and what do you expect from him tomorrow night?
Yeah, Papa's a fantastic person. A lot of our boys, Tino especially, have really gathered a lot of momentum through this week, having Papa back in the side. We all know what he can bring and what he's capable of, but I think he's sort of flown under the radar a bit this year with his form. He's been terrific for Canberra, and a big reason why they're doing well down there is because of their big boys through the middle. So he gives a lot of energy where it's needed. He's a very calming, quiet feature of a man, but he brings a lot of strength through the middle for us, and we're looking forward to see him go out there.
Nate, Andrew Webster, mate, you played in 11 straight series for Queensland over a long period of time, which is quite an effort. Can you compare the culture of the Queensland team that you're part of now to those teams that you were part of over the dominating era of Queensland Rugby League, really?
Well, I wouldn't compare cultures with dominating. I think we were fortunate with the work ethic we had through some key positions, and our coaching staff were fantastic in reminding us about our values and making sure that we didn't forget the people that come before us and the people that are going to come after us and our players. And that's something that we're doing now as a coaching staff. Fortunately, a lot of us I shouldn't say a lot of us, most of us in the coaching staff at the moment, we're part of that little run of fortune there. And when I say fortune, we worked really hard to get that. These games aren't, won lightly and won easily, mate. That's very rarely is. Even the bigger blowouts are still, minimal changes in your preparation to prevent that. So, yeah, a job for us is to maintain the focus of our values and keep pushing that on our current squad.
Hey Nate, Gamet Shibasaki, he was a shock to some, but what makes you confident that he belongs in this arena?
Similar to Robbie Toya, mate, I think that there's a process that our staff and our selectors go through that a lot of other people wouldn't. And these guys watch so much football, mate, like it's out of control, the amount of football that they watch. It's insane, to be honest with you. I was still shocked at how much they watch. And they see the traits that these two boys have. Both of them actually coming back from serious injuries, and it's probably a way that they've worked hard to get back that's been a factor and some of the traits that we like. But defensively, they're both very strong.
Nate, I'd be interested to hear your take on, so from game one, the performance to start game two, and then the second half. What did you take out of that game in game two?
A lot of wet clothes, Crawley. Yeah. Started pissing down there. Look, the difference was the style of football we were playing. Right? We were playing a more even style of attack in game two. We were just, we weren't even close to the pace that New South Wales was setting in the first game, and in the first half of game two, we just started better. Both sides, mate, look, we're not going to boast about anything, being one game all. Both sides are yet to play a good brand of footy for 80 minutes. So, for us, we know what we need to focus on, we know where we need to work, and we've been working on them at training. We've been managing, really well with our controllables, and that's what we're to keep moving on.
Milesy, how's the prep been for this decider? Has Billy changed much up, or has it been very much the same as the second game?
Yeah, look, all of our preps have been quite similar and two very different results, right? So, we just keep trying to control what we can control. And obviously there's a few things this camp where you just have no idea we're going to come along, but, we adjust to it, and we've had blokes stand up, and you all know what it's like sometimes when the best player's out, other people find a little bit more of a voice, and, we've had a few more of our guys stand up this week, which has been good. So hopefully we can transfer that into the game tomorrow night.
Good on you, Milesy. We appreciate you joining us. I miss your head, and I might see you tomorrow night out there. And good luck against the Blues.
Go the Maroons, Braithy boy.
There he is, the great Nate Miles, a good mate of mine. He's a champion. Now, let's get back to the footy. Richo was on NRL 360 last night. It was good to see him front up and take us on face to face. How did you guys see it?
I thought he was very strong. I thought he answered all your questions pretty well. I thought, he's a very old, seasoned campaigner, Richo. He's been around for a long time. I thought he's trying to get him going. It just seems to be it's a tough grind of the West Tigers, and good on him for fronting.
It is a tough grind, and he did a good job turning up. I thought there's obviously questions that he couldn't answer. You alluded to the legal situation with Lachlan Galvin. It didn't give me the answer I wanted on why the club chose to release Lachlan Galvin. You keep going back to it, and when they had him tied up for another year and a half, if they'd done nothing wrong, you keep him there. It's the same with young Talon De Silva at the moment. I don't get why the club is letting these kids go. And I know they say we only want players that are going to be here, but they could have another problem coming up with Jerome.
Well, we'll get to that now. This could be a problem. And I've thought about this a lot over the last 24 hours. So Jerome Buller's off contract, can negotiate November for 2027, that is. And he's got two clauses. One the club can take up and one he can take up. The club takes it up, they've got to pay him $900,000 a year. The one if he takes it up, it's $800,000 a year. But there's something behind all of this too that could play a part. Now, he's just joined Isaac Moses, which I find is pretty interesting. Considering the relationship Moses has got with the club, given the Galvin situation, Benji Marshall and Shane Richardson. But I'm just interested to see what you guys think of this, and does it have a potential of causing a bit of drama here? And what do we think about Buller? Will he re-sign? Won't he? Is he worth that? Like, this is going to play out because we know how Isaac does things. So this isn't going to be quiet. and it could get a bit noisy.
Well, I would hate to think that Isaac would try and move his client out of a club in which he's happy for.
But he's already talking to other clubs.
Well, apparently Isaac Moses called the Tigers this morning and said it's not right. He hasn't been talking to other clubs. So take that as you will.
Okay.
Take that as you will. I don't believe anything these days that's what actually happened. Well, I don't know. That's Michael's story, but I'm just reporting what I was told today, that Isaac Moses told the club they haven't been talking to other clubs at all. As I said, take that as you will. But it's not a great situation, is it? Yeah. I mean, that's the problem when you're a club at the bottom of the ladder. Like, it's the same as the Luai get out clauses. Like, and this is, again, a bigger picture about the contracting system working so far in advance. It puts the power in the hands of the player manager. And the clubs at the bottom of the ladder have to either pay overs or put options in the player's way, favourable options in the player's way, to get those big marquee players or keep players like Jareem Buller. So that's a systematic problem with the game, I reckon. And I think, when the Tigers signed Jerome, this is the insanity of it. When do you think Jerome Luai's deal with the Tigers was announced? January 4, 24. Like, it's so far back, and the whole thing about putting the contract options in there was that the Tigers hoped by the time it got to November 1 this year that their club was going to be in a position of power and strength. Now they're trying, are they? Do you reckon they are? I reckon it's been one minute it's been Galvin, then it's been De Silva, now it's going to be Luai, then it's going to be Buller.
But can you take back the power? Like, so they say they only want players there who want to be there. So can you take back the power by not having these clauses in future contracts? Like, because there comes a time where you have to stand your ground. And you have to stand for something. And we said it last week on the show, like, the really good clubs, I know they're in a better position, mate. The Tigers, it'd be so hard. And so many coaches have gone through the corridors in the last decade and it just haven't worked for them. But at some stage, they've got to stand for something. Take those clauses out.
I'm worried about how this is going to play out. I'm just letting that be known right now.
Oh, that's it's just like... But, I mean, it's just a slow-moving car crash.
It is. We've got to get going. Two Immortals' birthday today. Mal Meninga's birthday.
Meninga.
And Paul Crawley.
Hey,
don't know about
happy
that.
birthday,
Mate. Same league as
Happy
Mal.
birthday, mate. Hope you had a good day. All right, up next, where we preview tomorrow night's State of Origin decider with Michael Ennis and James Graham. Welcome back and hello to Michael Ennis and James Graham for an Origin preview for tomorrow night. And who better to have than you two? You ready to rock?
Absolutely, Braith.
Let's do this then, eh?
Ready to
Nathan
go.
Cleary, how big of a game is it for it?
Yeah, massive. I think, he's been so dominant at club level, it agitates me a fraction, to be honest, that there's the question marks around him at Origin, because I feel like he's been so good at different stages. Like, his dominance at club level at times, like 2 Clive Churchill medals, to do that on grand final is absolutely phenomenal. Like, after 26, 27 rounds plus a final series, to then get up and dominate year after year, I just think it's a big occasion. Back at home, a decider, the series, particularly after game 2, where he carried that injury in, didn't execute the way he would have liked to in the first half, was clearly hampered by that leg. Then relentlessly got himself into the mindset that all bets were off in the second half and were able to put on 24 points, I think it was, or 20-odd points. I just think back at home, decider, Cleary, I think he's just going to run the footy, and I think he's going to kick him to death, and he's just going to be so ruthless in how he goes about it, James.
Of course it's a huge game. Like, the NRL public expect a performance from him.
Yep.
He expects a performance from himself. Every time he takes to the Rugby League field, he would have that demand of himself. So, of course, it's a huge game. He knows that he has the ability to affect this game more than arguably anybody out there on that Rugby League field. So, yeah, he will have a big game.
Yeah. Frank Panisi, we interviewed him earlier, New South Wales footy manager, and he said that he's fit and ready to go, very positive, had a great week. Now, his kicking game, or the kicking game in game 2, firstly, do you think it hurt them, and how much will it help having a fit Nathan Cleary?
Oh, it's huge. He's obviously agitated the day before the game, which, he comes in, wet conditions, and we completed 10 sets Yeah, in wet conditions, field position is absolutely paramount, and your kicking game is paramount. We didn't have either. We made errors. I think we had
2 out on the full, I believe, from memory.
Yeah.
and we gave away our greatest assets. Our greatest assets, I think, New South Wales, our yardage game, particularly our back five. I think our back five, in terms of metres, are up there with the greatest, I think, of all time. Like, in terms of the metres, you think of what New South Wales can output in Lomax, To'o, Edwards, when Latrell gets going, when Stephen Crichton get going. Like, they are absolutely elite. And then our kicking game. Like, if we've got an advantage over Queensland, like Nathan's kicking game, is superior, in my opinion, to Dearden and Munster. And we weren't able to get either on because Nathan was hampered with the leg injury, and then we made errors and multiple errors inside our half and gave away that field position. I think it'll be a completely different story tomorrow night.
What effect or what situation, the Munster situation, will it affect Queensland as a playing group, you think?
Yeah, obviously our thoughts are with the Munster family right now, and it's remarkable that he's playing. But when you're playing big games, there's a lot of time to dwell and stew. And they've had their captain's run today, and there's 24 hours to get through till kick-off. And when you're a player, you do think a lot, and you'd be thinking of him because he shouldn't be there. And in those final moments, we've all played in those big games, and you catch the eye of the big name players usually, and you look and you think about what they're going to bring. You can't let that man down tomorrow. You can't help but be inspired for the game of your life because he shouldn't be there. So of course it's going to affect every single one of those Queensland players. Imagine being in that dressing room and seeing Cameron Munster after the week that he's had. It's going to be huge.
What about Josh Papali'i for Queensland? What does he bring? Does he make their team stronger? Are you looking forward to him joining the team tomorrow night?
As a New South Welshman, Braith, I really don't like this one because I'm good friends with Papa. Spent plenty of time with him in Canberra. I think that the thing about Papa is he walks forward, not backwards. I think that's the thing. He's a man's man. And I saw some vision during the week of Tino. Tino, you could just see he's just in awe of Josh. And Josh, he's the boss. And you can see there's a couple of elements to this Queensland thing. Yes, what you just touched on. Obviously the situation around Cameron Munster, which has been tragic, but also the return of Josh Papali'i. Like Matty John says, you bring an old dog for a hard road, and Kurt Capewell was that for the last game. Well, I think it only amplifies. Like Papa's a bigger presence, and it's exactly what they need coming here up against Payne Haas, who is the best front rower in the game, and who's looking for an enormous performance. He's had a massive series. Queensland side looks a hell of a lot different with Josh Papali'i in it.
It improves with him in, doesn't it? And that's where New South Wales have targeted. They've made no secret of they've come through the middle.
Absolutely.
Makes Queensland stronger in that segment of the field.
What about, there was much talked about our fullback before the series, Ponga, Walsh, Tabuai Fado. We've gone for the old dog, down a tough road. What about this young kid at the back?
I'm looking forward to it. Gordy, I think I was at Suncorp 2 weeks ago and he absolutely lit it up. Like 4 tries, he was just dynamic. And then talking to him after the game, me and Lara Pitt were standing there, he's just so infectious. Like, a big smile on his face. And we saw the damage that he did. When Suoli got sent off and they had to make that positional change at Acor Stadium, he ran right, particularly down that left-hand side, until Madge was able to readjust and be able to move Angus Crichton around and Liam Martin around to be able to contain him and his speed out on the edge. But I do think I think he's walking into an ambush tomorrow. I really do. I think New South Wales, and in particular Nathan, and I spoke about his ruthlessness and I doubled down on that. I think there is no one more calculated in our competition and ruthless than Nathan Cleary when he gets his game on. And I think he'll continue to put Hammer into uncomfortable positions. That's what he has to do, and he has to be relentless with it, and I think he will.
He will, Mick. You're right, and the Hammer's going to need to be across that. Obviously, when Ponga went down, Queensland had some options there, and in their coach, I don't know if there was a person on the planet that knows that position better than him. So you would hope that he gets that decision right. And if you imagine being the Hammer and you've got that faith and look, they will have drilled down into the kicking game of Nathan Cleary. I know I've heard Queenslanders talk and they say it's a focus on us. But you're naive if you don't think that they're going to look to counteract the kicking plan of a Cleary. And that is the positional sense of where the fullback and the back three are.
I agree. I think they'll look at that big time. That's where probably Hammer's just going to be a little bit better. But lastly, Shibasaki, will he be able to handle Stephen Crichton tomorrow night? What do you honestly think?
What are you smiling for, Mick?
I think so much comes back onto our two halves. Like whether it's Nathan on that right-hand side with Stephen Crichton, I hope the block plays disappear, Braith. I really do, because I think if we can get that early ball and just that genuine one-on-one battle, I think Shibasaki is so systematic with his reads defensively that if he can keep Crichton on his inside and jam and unsettle him, I think he'll handle that. But if Nathan can unlock him with some early ball early, I think Crichton can trouble him. The other one we haven't spoken about is Latrell. And there's a big thing on Jerome Luai, who I love Jerome, but I thought he was a little flighty. Early in that first half of that second game, I felt he was left foot, and he was trying to skim back through the middle and bounce through the middle, look for opportunities. When he's had success, Jerome, it's when he's come off that one left foot and just gone direct. And that's what he needs to do early, Braith, or he needs to feed Latrell.
I'm with you.
Because if he can feed Latrell and ignite him early, particularly at home, I think our two centres could be the difference.
It's the fairy tale, isn't it, with Shibasaki, the road that he's been on.
It's a great story.
It's a dream, but his opposing centre is aiming to give him some nightmares. And if, like you say, if Crichton on the outside, and if the Queensland inside players don't work incredibly hard to help him out, he could get exposed.
Thank you, Jimmy. Mick, I've heard if...
Where's your blue shirt tonight?
Oh, no, this is...
What are you talking about?
This is a maroon, isn't it?
I don't know, it's just in wardrobe. What colour is it?
I've heard if the Maroons win, you're going to get the Shibasaki goatee.
I reckon I could grow it in a week. You could do it in a day.
I'll have one by the time I get home. Thank you, boys. Tonight, following NRL 360, it's part 2 of Face to Face with Laurie. Welcome back as we take a look at the ins and outs of round 19, all thanks to Sportsbet. And now it's time for the latest odds with Joel Kane. And I hear you've been in the lab the last couple of days and you've got something for us.
I just come out. Kenny knocked on the door. He said, Joel, you're on, mate.
Okay.
So I've just done that. But, boys, I have found something. And the irony, could this happen? The man who has handed over the #1 Queensland jumper, could he have given us the clues? Kalen Ponga. Look at this. So this happens twice in the game. You're looking for Kalen Ponga here. They're going to come over this side. Look at the hammer at fullback. So they're going to go to the line here. This is the former Queensland fullback trying to find something with the incumbent Queensland fullback. He wasn't in the same postcode on that occasion. Bradman Best scores this game in Perth. Okay, it's happened to you once. It's happened to you once. Here we go to the left-hand side. Look at the hammer train. Far right of your page. We're looking for the former Queensland fullback. He's done the work. He knows what's going on. Bradman, are you ready again? Yes, please, sir. I certainly am. Hammer is not in the same postcode. So for me, boys, with Sportsbet, you can do player of the match. So in these big games, player of the match, you can do it in a same-game multi into whatever you like. A play to score a try, unders, overs. I think Latrell Mitchell on that left-hand side, Angus Crichton, they can get it. And it's time for Yo. How many times has he been the bridesmaid in Clive Churchill medals or big games? It's his time as the captain to seal the series. I think he can do that in the same game multi. Yo to get the player of the match, Latrell to score any time. That's the way I'll go for New South Wales, and for Queensland, the Grant double. Gorden, you like that?
Oh, yeah, like it.
If he pinches a try and they win, mate, it's...
There we go.
There we go.
As usual, on the money.
Harry.
Thank you, sir.
Loved it. Spend more time in the lab, all right, Joel?
I'm going back there now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gordy. That's it for NRL 364 tonight. We'll be back Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. to review all the action from State of Origin. Time now for Face to Face.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.